Thanks, Rosemary, and thanks to you all for giving some time to this today. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about my background professionally and explain where I'm coming from in terms of this technology, Click and Go. I'm not a technologist, and I've never been involved as a professional in the technology world, but I'm a practitioner. I've been a practitioner in blindness and deafblindness for 30 years, teaching orientation and mobility and tactile sign language to deafblind youth and adults, and also I've done quite a bit of work with blind hearing adults. So my background is really in working with the blind and deafblind, and I've also done a great deal of tactile map making over the last 20 years, and I'm pretty sure that I've done more tactile map work than anyone else in the U.S. for the last couple of decades. A lot of it in California, but a lot of it in other parts of the U.S. and overseas. So one of my gripes about technology as a professional in blindness and deafblindness has been how rarely technology is tweaked to meet the needs of users, of potential users who have some sensory loss, and especially in wayfinding. So I set out with a programmer that I found to develop a technology that would be useful for deafblind travelers exclusively. So this technology has taken the exact opposite route that most technologies take. It was designed for people with a dual sensory loss, and we've now recognized that it can meet the needs of lots of other folks who don't have disabilities, and I'll explain that. But the focus of this has been on the challenge of wayfinding, and I'm assuming that some of the participants are blind. Can anyone just let me know with a hand raise if there are any blind participants, or even a quick chat response so I'm aware of that? So far, I don't see anyone telling me that they're blind. So I'm going to assume, I'll still assume that there may be. Okay, so we're talking about wayfinding. And what is wayfinding? It's how to get from here to there. What are my strategies? What is it that I use? What techniques do I use to get from A to B? And traditionally, for a blind or a deafblind traveler, you've had a list of choices. They're not great, but this is all that's been available. One, you can orient yourself. And some folks are much more skilled at that than others. And the ability to do that depends greatly upon the complexity and the size of the place that you're trying to orient yourself to. So if it's the Mall of America or the University of Southern California, well, that's pretty daunting. If it's a corner grocery store, you can probably handle it. And I think you can handle even the complex areas, but the time involved in self-orienting is tremendous. So that's your first option. Second, you can ask for directions or guide support. Now that's only as good as the person who might be there to give you directions. And most sighted folks don't know how to give directions to blind travelers. So that's an old problem where if you think you're going to get help, you have to be careful, because people just don't know what to say to a blind traveler when they're trying to guide them somewhere with a verbal set of directions. Third, you can use an orientation and mobility instructor, and that's those services are limited. You have to meet certain criteria, and if you have to pay out of pocket, it's expensive. So that's not really a very realistic option. And then there are some of the new technologies. Well, certainly there's the GPS technology, and there are new infrared and radio frequency technologies that mostly involve installing equipment in a facility and then giving people a receiver. And the ideas have been great for the technologies that require installation, but economically it's just been beyond feasible. It's too expensive. Even GPS, The units cost between $1,500 and $2,000 a piece, and that eliminates the majority of blind and deafblind folks right there. And they're on average inaccurate from 30 to 100 feet. And they don't go indoors. So there are limitations even if you have the money for it. And lastly, there are tactile maps. So these represent the 5 options that a blind traveler has had to get from here to there. I should say, too, that at any point, feel free to make a comment. Just let me know. You don't have to wait until the end. This can be very casual. I have a lot of information to present, but I don't need to do it in a rigid format. So, okay, so this 5th thing is tactile maps. And I don't know if any of you have gone to the CSUN conferences or some of the other conferences or seen any of the maps that I have, but I have them in various community colleges out in California at the School for the Blind. And this is an example of one. This is an etched metal map. I make portable and permanent tactile maps, so the portable ones can be put in your backpack and carried around. And these are great. I mean, they're a big plus for people who know how to use them. But the catch-22 with tactile maps is, first of all, you have to know where the map is to read it. So if it's a mounted map and you've never been to it, you need a map to get to the map, which is a problem. Second, if you don't read Braille, well, the best designed tactile map is not going to help you. And I think the latest numbers are somewhere between 10 and 20% of blind Americans know Braille. So tactile maps are not going to reach the folks that need to be supported with some wayfinding guidance. Not all of them, anyway. Okay, so ClickAndGo. It is a relatively new technology. It's sort of a technology-enabled service, and it's something that we launched about 18 months ago. It was launched by InTouch Graphics, and now it's its own company called ClickAndGo Maps. And it's customized for folks who are blind or deafblind primarily, and it has other applications for wheelchair travelers, elderly travelers, and low vision travelers. What does it do? Well, it provides landmarking and cues such as slope and distance information, texture, sound cues, the kinds of cues that a mobility instructor would point out to a student or to anyone they were accompanying if they were to describe a route. So it's very professionally compiled, customized and specific information that is mobility friendly. It's different from other technologies in that, one, it's free for any user, and two, there's no equipment to install or purchase for a facility, and you don't have to maintain any equipment. And another key point, with a lot of new technologies, one of the big difficulties is learning a new interface. This is a service that can be provided on your own home telephone. It can be on a rotary phone. It doesn't require any kind of special phone. You can also receive the data through a variety of other formats, and I'll go into that. This picture of this BookSense is simply one of the possible ways of delivering the data. All of the data can be downloaded in a zip file to any device that delivers text or MP3 data. Okay, so to the next question, how is the data delivered? You can get it with a screen reader on your computer. You can print it out in large print. You can download it in text or MP3 formats. You can call up on a telephone, and you can simply ask for the data that you're interested in using interactive voice response technology. How is it compiled? It's compiled by individual O&M instructors that go to a site and they manually collect data. We have a video library of all the routes that we've compiled, and I can use that for quality control to review data if I need to. We've gotten tremendous support from blind community leaders, great testimonials and endorsements. And it's been a very, very positive first year and a half for the technology. The business model is basically this. Blind and deafblind pedestrians should not need to pay for a technology or service that we can see for free. And if you compare what a deaf individual who visits a facility gets, let's say you have an activity that you're going to at a museum and you're deaf, well, the law mandates that the museum provide you with an interpreter to explain what's happening in the auditory world. If you're blind, there's no such equivalent, and we really feel that it's just a matter of time before this kind of access is considered a reasonable accommodation and required. Okay, I'm going to play a sample route. Can I just get a little feedback to make sure that people can still hear me? Anyone? Okay, good. I'm going to call in on another line, and I'm going to give an example of a route that I'll get over the phone that I'll work with on using interactive voice response. So I'm going to dial in with a Skype call and hope that this works. Okay. Just bear with me for 1 second. And I'll just run the prompts, and I'll pick a building and then an interior location. So 1 second. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the University of Minnesota Wayfinding Service, brought to you by ClickAndGo Wayfinding Maps. For directions, press 2 or say directions.
Directions.
Please say the starting landmark, or for a list of landmarks, press 2 or say list.
Kaufman Union North Doors.
You selected Kaufman Union North Doors. Please say the destination landmark, or for a list of landmarks, press 2 or say list.
Kaufman Bookstore.
You selected Kaufman Bookstore. There are 3 directions from Kaufman Union North Doors to Kaufman Bookstore. 1. Enter the Kaufman North side doors through a 20-foot carbon foyer into a second set of doors. Pack these doors onto the tiled first floor of Kaufman. 40 feet away, at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, are student lounge areas. Directly ahead is a low wall and railing which includes escalators leading to the first floor. The sound of these escalators should be in the direction of 12 o'clock. 2. Turn right towards the west side elevators. Walk 50 feet until the tile changes to carpet. Here, the hallway narrows, and 2 elevators are 10 feet ahead and to the left. The call button is between the 2 elevators. 3. Enter elevator, proceed to the ground level, and exit onto a tiled hallway. Turn right. Ahead and 60 feet and to the right is the main lobby area. The bookstore entrance is on the left side wall. As you walk forward, veer to this left side wall. There will be a sound of escalators to your right. The first doors on the left are the main bookstore entry doors. Returning to main menu.
Okay, I'm assuming everyone can still hear me, yes? Uh-oh. Good, good. Okay, are there any questions or comments about what you just heard? Because we don't need to wait till the end to go through with that. Anybody have any comments about that? Okay, so this was an example of an interior, and there is no other technology that can work indoors. So a couple of you have just made some comments. How does it work indoors? All of this data is compiled indoors. And one of my complaints about the mobility profession is that instructors, there are hundreds of them that are compiling data every day, working with their clients, and they never save the data. and it's a very insular profession, and it's hard to get some of the traditional ways of doing things to change. But I'm trying to talk with other O&M folks at conferences and all to try to get them to be more diligent about maintaining their data that they are compiling. For example, I used to, it works both indoors and outdoors, to answer Steve's question. I worked in New York City for 20 years, and we were always taught to simply verbalize our instruction to the client and never to save the data in any format. And over 20 years, I probably did the same boulevards that are commonly traveled, 100 times, again and again and again, rather than providing it to the client so they have resources that they can, and other clients can use this data. So anyway, this is a model that involves compiling mobility data and making it available for other people to use. It works indoors and outdoors, and it's simply data that you select as a user. I'm going to go now to the, I'm going to go to the a URL and show you an example of how someone could select a route, an indoor or an outdoor route, hopefully. Okay, so I think we can all see the, I don't see this all myself. I'm going to go to Get a Map. If you cannot see my website, please do let me know. But I'm assuming since no one has raised their hand that it's okay. I'm going to go to the University of Minnesota here. So here's a list of some sample sites. And what it has is a virtual, there's an explanation of the college campus of the University of Minnesota. And then if you want a route, you simply go to a drop-down menu, and you would do this all with sound with your screen reader and some key controls if you were blind, and you would select any number of starting points. And this could be an outdoor or an indoor. I mean, I just gave you the Kaufman North doors. Here's the interior destinations from Kaufman North doors. And we selected the bookstore. So you could print this out in Braille. You could deliver it in refreshable Braille. Or you could print it out in large print, or you can just listen to it. So here's the route that we just listened to. You can download it to your device. You can download every one of these routes in one click in a zip download if you wanted, if you were a student on campus. So I'm going to go back to Get a Map. Let's say you wanted another route that's outdoors. So here's Kaufman Union. Here's a route from the Kaufman Union to the local bus stop. So you would just click on it, and it would give you the directions from the front doors to the bus stop. And what's really, I think, helpful about this is that a student can actually travel from any public transit point to any building and then go into the building and find a destination inside the building. And there's no other service that gives that kind of seamless, from start to finish, very, very customized direction. All of the data is measured, landmarks are identified, and textual changes are identified. It's a very unique service. It obviously requires some serious compilation time. So when I did this for the University of Minnesota, I went there, I videotaped all these routes. We actually met with a focus group of blind students who are presently at the university, and we talked to them about what we could do and what they wanted. And we compiled according to their requests. And this is sort of like a Wikipedia service. So once you have the technology, you can just add data as you want. You can change data as you want. In fact, at this university right now, they're putting in a light rail system. So they've just torn up. This particular route is no longer effective. So we were just asked yesterday to review where the light rail has torn up the streets and to remove those routes until they finish their construction. But we can put temporary routes that are on that are there for construction periods, we can put them onto the system very simply. So it allows for very easy editing. Now, what I'm going to try to do is get back to my my PowerPoint, and so I'm going to try just going through this arrow. I have a blank. But to answer the question, how many places we have about 7 or 8 places right now. Aha, there's my PowerPoint. We did a subway station in Japan. We're doing the Massachusetts State House right now. We've got I think we have 8 places. We just did a park in the state of Washington. We've got a couple of hotels and a school for the blind, and we're really quite new. So we've never even done any of this in California. We haven't even presented it except at CSUN. Okay, so that first feature is accessible walking directions. Next, we have a point of interest option. And what we're trying to do is provide the equivalent. If any sighted person went to a university using Google Satellite, you can identify buildings, you can click on them, you can get labels that might explain what they are, and then you can go into their website and get more information about what that building might have for offices and etc. We want to be able to provide that same information in another manner for blind users, since they can't use the satellite, and none of that Google satellite information is accessible. So points of interest are available. Virtual tours. We set up customized virtual tours. And the reason for this, if you're blind and you go to a place and all you ask for is a route, you don't have any clue what that area looks like. So your sense of a whole is very incomplete. You don't have any gestalt sort of cognitive map of what the place even looks like as a general shape. So we'll give a virtual tour that describes the facility, talks about the parameters and the layout, and then we'll go in and allow you to pick routes and landmarks. It's a very important tool for familiarization, and we can add to it audio tours. So if we were describing, right now we're doing this for the State House, it's really a museum that was built, in the 1700s in Boston. And when we take someone to a room, it might be the Senate room, we can then give people extra information about the history of the room, and they can get that with a voice command. Okay, so virtual tours are available. Next, building directory access. Let's say you had a mall or a medical clinic or another building that had a huge number of internal destinations. It could be a large train station or train terminal. They all have visual kiosks. And there's no recommendations from the U.S. Access Board or the ADA to provide any accessible component to these kiosks. Even the latest entertainment kiosks that are like these massive touch screens that gives you all kinds of information in the new malls, I don't know, and even in some of the new airports, totally inaccessible for the blind. So what we offer to do is to take all of the information from those visual kiosks and just bring them to the cell phone of the traveler. So if you were at a mall, you could just call up, ask for the mall, say you're coming in the west doors of the mall, and you could ask for a Godiva chocolate, and it would take you right to the counter of Godiva chocolate, no matter where it's located in the mall. So this kind of access we think is really cutting edge, and we don't know of any other service that provides it. We can even take you to a restaurant, and then you can, through a voice command, you can simply ask for the menu over the phone. And given how few restaurants have Braille for menus and how low a percentage there is of blind adults who even read Braille, this is a service that will reach every traveler. And it's simply a matter of us getting this information out there. We also provide emergency egress data. So if you're working in a large building, a large facility, you would want to know what are the ways out of this place in an emergency. And that's actually one of the priorities for a lot of federal buildings these days with all of the paranoia about terrorism and all. So it's a very important point. Applications of this. Transit, we feel, is the most important application. I mean, how else are blind and deafblind travelers getting around? They're using public transit systems, and they're generally inaccessible. So you could go to a large bus transit center, and there might be, in a large city, there might be 10 different places where buses stop. If you're blind and you need to take bus number 23, you have absolutely no clue where that bus stops. It's not available anywhere. None of that information. And we could make all of that type of data easily available for blind and deafblind visitors. Other places that we could have this, we should have this, is university, school campuses, hotels, airports. I just spoke with the San Diego Zoo this morning, and they were very interested. Hospitals, malls, etc. Skyways and tunnel systems, this would be ideal. Okay. We're now developing mobile apps primarily for the iPhone, but we're also going to do the Droid. And it's going to allow people to simply interact with their phone. So you could download the app that would be for a university, and you don't have to make a phone call. You simply interact with the application that's on your phone. So it eliminates the need for making a call. And for those of you who might be thinking, well, okay, if you listen to a route for the first time and it was 4 or 5 steps and it took you across a college campus, how are you going to remember that route? Well, we're going to have options for, obviously you can download it, but if you called up on your phone, this is something that we can set it up so that you can get a return call after you listen to the route, and it will send a text message to your phone, so you have it in text format. On the app, it's going to be something that you can simply repeat. But there are a number of new features that we're developing, including user profiles. So for those of you who are familiar with blindness, if you think of a cane traveler and a guide dog traveler, they're using greatly different amounts of types of information for their landmarking. A guide dog traveler is not touching anything in the environment. They're simply giving commands to the dog at different points. A cane traveler is touching everything, and they're going to want to look for landmarks that are accessible through the cane tip. So the narratives would be different. A deafblind traveler is going to have a slightly different narrative because they're not going to be using any sound cues. You're going to want to have more tactile and proprioceptive cues in those narratives. We're going to institute a blog feature so people can give updates on when the route was last traveled, if there were any changes or concerns. Every facility is going to be responsible for maintaining the data and letting us know if there's been construction or any changes. We'll have different databases for wheelchair travelers so that you could have an entire area mapped out for wheelchair routes. And before you wheel to a destination that you think is accessible, you could call up and make sure it's accessible. Another feature that we're implementing, and this is a real concern for blind travelers, if you're going along a route and you have to cross a number of intersections that you have not been to, some very unusual intersection configurations can be extremely challenging, especially if there's not a lot of traffic. You may have no idea where that opposite corner is or the shape of the intersection, and we'll be putting a chime in on some of these routes that tells the listener that there's a complicated intersection ahead, and they can request more data that describes it just using their voice. And this would also be available over the website. So, just to summarize, this is a free service for any users. It's delivered in every possible format: refreshable Braille, printed Braille, large print, telephone, screen reader, and text and MP3 download. It's very easy to update and edit. There's no purchase of equipment, there's no installation, there's no maintenance, and it goes from outdoors to indoors. We can do it in multiple languages, as I was saying, and all the data is compiled by O&M folks, and it can be tailored to various user groups. For the bottom line for us is that if you're blind, you should not need to get a mobility instructor to go to a new area. You simply need data, and it's the data that's lacking, and it makes facilities inaccessible. So we're trying to push that this is a reasonable way to provide access because it's so easy to use. And that's basically it. I'm going to just ask now if there are any questions. This is sort of it's still a relatively brief overview, but let me know if any of you are still awake. It feels rather odd to have a one-way. I'm not used to webinars where I can only speak and not listen. So please feel free to ask any questions. Okay, Steve, the cost to the user, it's free. So there's no cost to the user. We feel that if I can go around and see this information myself, this should not be something that a blind person has to be charged for. This should be something that is freely available to the user. So the business model is the users don't pay. The facilities pay to have a license for the technology and to have their facilities compiled. The charges it's a sort of a sliding scale. If we're doing this for a small agency for the blind, it's a much lower fee. We've been charging from $10,000 to $20,000 for small organizations, small universities, 10 to 15, and larger facilities has been $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. And if it was a large transit system, that would be much more. Oh, great. Marty's, everybody can read this. Yeah, I wasn't sure. It always feels funny when you can't see the group you're talking to and you can't hear them. But I am curious to hear about your feedback on this. It's not real clear to me what your backgrounds are. All I know is that you're coming from an assistive technology perspective. But this is a very unique service. It's a very new service, and the feedback we've gotten from blind and deafblind folks has been just consistently superlative. But I don't know the places that you represent. I'm just curious how you feel this might impact the kinds of organizations you work with or consult with. Okay, how is this funded? We are funded by, this is a startup, and it's funded by license fees and compilation fees. So, for example, we're doing the Massachusetts State House now. We had to actually bid on this as a state contract, but they pay us a license fee that's sort of like if you were to buy Adobe Illustrator. It's simply access to the technology. And that's a one-time, lifetime fee, and then they pay us to compile all the data from the public transit points to the State House and from the State House entry doors to all of the interior destinations. And we're going to be doing it in English, Japanese, and Spanish. So there'll be, and we could do it in more, but those are the languages that they've expressed an interest in. Chi Hung, I'm reading your comment right now. No, we don't need offices in every town. We need to travel. I have a team of mobility instructors that are very eager to scour the country and collect data for this project. So right now I'm doing it with 2 other consultants. I just got back from Chicago where I was compiling for a hotel. And what we do is we go to a site. I'll spend a day or 2 videotaping. I was at the State House two weeks ago, and I videotaped about 115 routes. And then I work from the routes, and I write up my narratives. I use a pedometer to measure from point to point, and I describe in the narrative every bit of information that I know a blind or a deafblind traveler would want to be aware of. And then I pull it all together for a concise narrative, and I put it into our database. Any other comments? And if anybody wants to speak up, I'll certainly be happy to hand over the mic.
Joe, this is Rosemary. There was a question from Steve. Will your website show where the service is available?
Oh yeah, you know what? I didn't scroll down. I'm sorry. Yeah, the website has a list of sites that are completed, and ones that we're presently working on are not up. So there are a couple of sites that we haven't launched because they're still in development, and we want to get a final green light from the facility folks. The apps for smartphones are going to be free. Yeah, we're trying to make everything free. I mean, at the worst, it might be $1.99. I don't know how that works with Apple. Well, there's no real. The question is, how much does the device cost? There really is no device. You'd use your own telephone or your own computer. So it's a matter of accessing our website or our interactive voice system. And all of the sites that we have up have accessible numbers. I think that might be Rosemary helping me out with a. I'll go to a Get a Map page here. So this is a list of sites, and we'll go to this Lions Park. So there's a number here. There's an 800 number, for example, and this was a very new idea. So we made a park for children, fully accessible by public transit, and then every route within the park is accessible. So that if you were a blind parent and you wanted to take your kids to the park, you could do it. And you can get anywhere there are tactile maps up at the park as well. So we did a very complete, accessible service to this park. So anyway, that gives you an idea of. Let me just go to this park here again. So this park has even a link to a large print map, but it has all kinds of routes that would be within the parameters of the park for either a blind youth or a blind parent who is taking their child to the park. Let me go back to the questions. How is this going in California? We've really just launched this, and we've gotten some really strong interest from a couple of universities. The San Diego Zoo was very excited about it this morning, but I frankly haven't had much time to really market it in California, and I'm hoping to do that. So far there's nothing going. The tactile maps we have in a number of places in California, but not this technology. Tarun, you have a HTC. We don't have the app developed yet, so we're right now just beginning the programming. But you can get to any of the data just by making a simple phone call, and that's a free call for you. But it's not in an app format, so that it couldn't be downloaded to your phone. You'd have to call up for the information right now. But again, all these numbers are free numbers. They cost 11 cents a minute for the facility. But when we make the app, they'll be about 2 cents because we'll just have to pay for the server costs. That's what my programmer tells me anyway. Any other comments? Was there no one in the group who was blind? I think I did get an email from someone earlier who said that they were blind and they had to, unfortunately, they had a conflict and they couldn't join in. But thanks, Helene and Tarun. Thanks. Yeah, if you want, I'd be happy to mail you, some testimonials and just a summary of information if you thought that might be helpful. Well, I might assume, and I'm going to defer to you, Rosemary, but it sounds like people have asked the questions that they had, and okay, just send me an email. I'm going to go back to my. I'm going to try to go back. Okay, you could go to my website. Actually, if there's a way I could write my email address. So, Rosemary, are you able to send my email to folks if they're interested? Certainly on the website there's a way to contact us, so if you want to take those websites down, Yeah, but my personal, I can just put it in the chat box. So I'm putting my email address so you don't have to go find it through the website. So that's my email. If anybody wanted me to send them any information or brochures, just let me know. There's actually a brochure downloadable from the website as well. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And any feedback you might have, if you want to follow up and contact me by email, I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear what you have to say. Thanks.